Hi there. Welcome to NapTime History channel. Tonight we're about to explore one of ancient Rome's most unusual survival stories. Picture this. You're standing in the tunnel beneath the Colosseum, knees shaking like reeds in a storm, while 50,000 Romans above are screaming for blood, specifically yours. The sand is already stained crimson from the morning's executions, and you've just realized that the sword in your hand feels about as natural as a live python. You probably won't survive this, but then again, maybe that's exactly what'll save you. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop a comment letting me know where you're listening from and what time it is there. I love seeing how far these bedtime stories travel. All right, let's begin the story. You stumble into the blazing sunlight of the arena, and immediately, everything goes wrong. Your left sandal catches on the gate's edge, sending you sprawling face first into the sand. The crowd's bloodthirsty roar transforms into something else. Laughter. 50,000 Romans are pointing and cackling as you scramble to your feet, spitting out a mouthful of sand that tastes suspiciously like dried blood and shame. Your opponent, a seasoned Thracian with more scars than skin, watches with a mixture of confusion and disgust. This is not how gladiatorial debuts are supposed to go. You're meant to stride out confidently, salute the emperor, maybe flex a little for the ladies in the patrician seats. Instead, you're doing your best impression of a newborn giraffe, all wobbly legs and questionable coordination. The arena sand, mixed with sawdust to absorb blood, has somehow managed to get inside your armor already. It's chafing in places you didn't know could chafe. Your trainer, old Brutus, had warned you about this moment. The sand doesn't care about your feelings. He'd growled during your disastrous training sessions. It'll drink your blood same as any champions. Of course, Brutus had also given up trying to teach you proper sword work after you'd accidentally thrown your gladius into the stands during practice. Twice, the Thracian advances, his curved Seika blade catching the afternoon sun. You raise your shield, or try to. It slips from your sweaty grip and crashes to the ground with a clang that echoes through the arena. The laughter intensifies. Someone in the crowd shouts, "He fights like my grandmother." Another voice adds, "Your grandmother fights better." But here's where things get interesting. As you fumble for your shield, bent over in the most undignified position possible, you notice something. The crowd isn't baying for your blood anymore. They're entertained. Not in the way they usually are, watching skilled warriors dance their deadly dance, but in the way they might watch a street performer juggle badly, or a drunk senator trying to mount his horse. The Thracian hesitates. This isn't what he trained for either. Gladiators are supposed to die with honor, with courage, with at least a basic understanding of which end of the sword to hold. You're ruining the entire mystique. He glances up at the editor of the games, the magistrate who organized this spectacle, seeking guidance. The editor looks equally perplexed. You finally manage to retrieve your shield, holding it upside down. The Thracian sighs audibly, a sound that somehow carries across the arena, and half-heartedly swings at you. You don't so much dodge as accidentally fall backward, landing on your rear with another puff of sand. Your sword flies from your hand, spinning through the air in a perfect arc before embedding itself point first in the sand, about 20 feet away from anyone useful. Historians still debate whether what happens next was brilliant strategy or pure accident. As you scramble backward on your hands and rear, kicking up sand like a panicked crab, you let out a sound. Not a war cry, not a death scream, but something between a hiccup and a sneeze. The crowd loses it completely. Even some of the stern-faced guards are struggling to maintain composure. The journey to this moment of sand-eating humiliation started 3 months ago, when you were sold to the Gladiator school, the ludus, of Gaius Cornelius Maximus. You'd been a failed baker's apprentice, arrested for debt after accidentally burning down half a block trying to innovate with what you called extreme temperature bread techniques. The magistrate offered you a choice, the mines or the arena. You chose the arena, figuring at least the death would be quicker. Your first day at the ludus immediately proves this was a miscalculation. The training yard is a sun-baked square of packed earth surrounded by high walls topped with iron spikes. Around you, hardened men practice combat with the focus of surgeons and the brutality of butchers. The air wakes with the clash of metal and the grunts of exertion. You're handed a wooden sword, a rudis, and told to join the beginners group. Hold it like you mean it, barks the doctore, the head trainer, a former gladiator named Marcus, whose face looks like it's been used as a practice target for the past 20 years. You grip the wooden sword. It immediately slips from your sweaty palm and clatters to the ground. Marcus's eye twitches. The training regime is supposed to build you into a killing machine. Wake before dawn for a breakfast of barley porridge that tastes like wet sand mixed with regret. Then comes strength training, lifting sacks of sand, pushing weighted carts, climbing ropes. You manage to drop a sack on your own foot, get run over by your own cart, and hang upside down from a rope for 20 minutes before someone notices you've tangled yourself into an inadvertent human knot. But it's the combat training where you truly shine in your incompetence. The basic thrust and parry drill that others master in days takes you weeks to perform without stabbing yourself. You develop a signature move, dropping your sword and apologizing profusely. The other gladiators start taking bets on how many times you'll disarm yourself during a single training session. The record stands at 17. Your fellow trainees are a mixed bunch. There's Titus, a former soldier who treats gladiator school like a vacation compared to military life. He watches your attempts at swordplay with the fascinated horror of someone witnessing a natural disaster. There's Alexios, a Greek prisoner of war who spends his evenings composing sad poems about olive groves and your daytime performance. And then there's Big Quintus. Nobody knows his real name, who's built like a siege tower and has the personality of one too. The doctorate tries everything. Individual instruction, where you somehow manage to break 3 practice swords in one afternoon, not through strength, but through progressively creative mishandling. Group drills, where you single-handedly disrupt formations that have worked since the time of Spartacus. They even try putting you in heavy armor, thinking the weight might steady you. You promptly fall over and can't get up, lying there like an overturned turtle while the other trainees step around you. By Mars's bleeding spear, Marcus mutters, during your 6th week, watching you accidentally fling your shield into the dining area during what should have been a simple defensive stance. I've trained farmers, criminals, and once a blind man, but you're special. The other gladiators develop a strange fondness for you, the way one might feel protective of a 3-legged dog that keeps walking into walls but wags its tail constantly. You become the Ludus mascot, a good luck charm of sorts. At least I'm not him, becomes a common refrain when someone has a bad training day. The food at the Ludus is surprisingly good. Gladiators are expensive investments. After all, barley stew, beans, meat on occasion. The medical care is excellent too, which in your case is fortunate since you need it constantly. The Ludus physician, a Greek named Democritus, starts preparing your daily bandages in advance. What is it today? He asks each evening. Dropped something on yourself? Ran into something? Tripped over nothing? Historians still argue whether gladiator schools deliberately kept 1 or 2 incompetent fighters as morale boosters for the others. Some cite evidence from Pompeii graffiti mentioning Claudius the Clumsy, who survived 43 fights through what appears to be pure accident. Your fellow trainees start calling you Fortunatus, the lucky one, though it's unclear whether they mean you're lucky to still be alive or they're lucky you're there to make them look good. The Lanista himself, Cornelius, occasionally watches training from his shaded platform. He's a businessman above all, investing serious money in each gladiator. Watching you perform is like watching denarii sprout wings and fly away. Yet he doesn't sell you or send you to the mines. Maybe he's curious to see how this catastrophe plays out, or maybe he's already calculating the novelty value of a gladiator who fights like a drunk flamingo. Your salvation comes during a sweltering afternoon when you're paired against Titus for a demonstration bout. Parents have brought their children to watch gladiator training, a popular entertainment in Rome, like watching soldiers drill, but with more blood and better snacks. You're supposed to show basic sword work. Instead, what follows changes everything. Titus advances with a simple thrust you've practiced deflecting 1,000 times. You step backward, trip over your own feet, and windmill your arms frantically. Your wooden sword flies from your grip, nearly decapitating a watching senator's son. As you fall, your flailing foot catches Titus in the shin. He hops on one leg, cursing creatively in 3 languages, while you roll across the sand, apologizing profusely. The children shriek with laughter. The parents, initially horrified, begin chuckling. Even stern Titus cracks a smile as he rubs his bruised shin. That's when you realize something crucial. You might be the worst fighter in the empire, but you're accidentally the funniest. From that day forward, you lean into it. Not obviously, that would ruin the effect. But you start noticing what gets laughs. The way you fumble with straps on armor, turning a simple buckling into an epic struggle against leather and bronze. Your innovative technique of closing your eyes and swinging wildly while squealing. The peculiar dance you do when trying to avoid attacks, somewhere between a seizure and an attempt at interpretive art. The Dr. A. Marcus catches on quickly. During a conversation you overhear between him and Cornelius, he says, "The boy couldn't fight his way out of a fishnet, but by the gods, he's entertaining. Maybe we don't make him a gladiator. Maybe we make him something else." You perfect the art of accidental comedy. When practicing with the heavy training posts, you develop a signature move of hitting yourself with the backswing. During net and trident training as a retiarius, you somehow entangle yourself so thoroughly that 3 trainers spend an hour cutting you free. You're the only trainee who's ever knocked himself unconscious with his own shield twice. Your fellow gladiators begin incorporating you into their routines. Big Quintus discovers that pretending to be terrified of you gets huge laughs from visitors. He'll back away in mock horror as you approach with a weapon, shouting, "Not Fortunatus, anyone but Fortunatus." The Greek Alexios composes comic poems about your exploits that become popular in Roman taverns. But here's where it gets historically interesting. Romans loved their gladiators, but they also loved to laugh. Scholars note that comic relief acts, called paigniarii, fought with wooden weapons in bloodless bouts between the serious fights. You're accidentally training for a role that already exists, though nobody's quite made the connection yet. The ludus starts using you strategically. When important sponsors visit, you're trotted out to lighten the mood after particularly brutal training demonstrations. A wealthy merchant's wife, disturbed by watching 2 Thracians nearly kill each other in practice, laughs until she cries, watching you somehow hit yourself in the face with both ends of a practice spear in rapid succession. You develop a strange sort of confidence, not in your fighting ability. That ship has sailed, crashed into rocks, and sunk with all hands, but in your ability to survive through pure entertainment value. You start adding flourishes, a little stumble here, an exaggerated expression of panic there. You perfect the art of dropping weapons at comedically appropriate moments. One day, a famous retired gladiator visits the school. Aurelius the Undefeated, veteran of 100 victories, watches you during training. You're attempting to demonstrate a basic parry and somehow launch your sword backward over your head while falling forward into a roll. The watching trainees hold their breath. Aurelius is known for his harsh criticism. He laughs, a deep, genuine belly laugh that echoes across the training yard. "That one," he tells Cornelius, pointing at you as you extract yourself from the sand. "Will die in the arena." He pauses for effect. "Of old age." Your reputation spreads through the strange network of ludus gossip. Trainers from other schools visit to witness the phenomenon. You become a teaching tool. See what he's doing? Do exactly the opposite. But more importantly, you become valuable in a way nobody expected. Cornelius starts booking you for private parties, not as a fighter, but as entertainment between courses at elaborate feasts. You perform mock battles where your incompetence is the star. Wealthy Romans pay good money to watch you fumble with armor, trip over nothing, and somehow emerge unscathed from encounters that should be fatal. Cornelius summons you to his private chambers on a humid evening when the air hangs heavy with the smell of olive oil and sweat from the day's training. His office reflects his wealth: marble busts of famous gladiators, elaborate mosaics depicting arena victories, and a desk covered in wax tablets detailing fighter contracts and odds. You manage to knock over an expensive bronze lamp within seconds of entering. Fortunatus, he begins, then pauses as you scramble to right the lamp, somehow making it worse. Stop. Just stop moving. You freeze mid-reach. He continues, I have a business proposition. You're the worst gladiator I've ever owned. You're possibly the worst gladiator who's ever lived. There are kitchen slaves who could beat you in combat. You nod enthusiastically. Self-awareness has become your shield more effectively than actual shields, which you tend to drop anyway. Cornelius leans back, studying you like a merchant examining a particularly puzzling piece of merchandise. But, he continues, you're also the most profitable fighter I have, who's never won a match. Last week, Senator Claudius paid me 3 times a gladiator's victory purse just to have you perform at his daughter's wedding. You tripped over the bride's dress, fell into the fish pond, and somehow the guests loved it. The Lanista's dilemma is painted across his face. Traditional gladiator economics are simple. Train fighters, send them to win or die gloriously, profit from victories and fame. You've broken this model completely. You can't fight, won't die gloriously, yet generate income through pure incompetence. I could sell you, he muses. There's a ludus in Capua that specializes in novelty acts. They have a gladiator who fights while reciting poetry, another who only battles while hopping on one foot. He pauses. But they've never had someone who defeats opponents through sheer confusion and accidental comedy. You shift nervously, immediately knock over a stylus holder. Wax tablets scatter across the floor like fleeing mice. Cornelius doesn't even react anymore. Your clumsiness has become background noise in his life, like rain or bird song. The negotiations that follow are unlike any gladiator contract in Roman history. Cornelius proposes keeping you, but not as a traditional gladiator. You'll be something new, a guaranteed crowd pleaser who appears between serious bouts. Your job is to lose spectacularly, to make violence funny rather than fatal, to give the crowd a chance to laugh between bloodlettings. Think of yourself as a pressure valve, Cornelius explains, warming to his theme. The crowd gets tense watching death matches. You release that tension. You're not a gladiator. You're a theatrical investment. The contract terms are bizarre. Where normal gladiator contracts specify training regimens and combat expectations, yours includes clauses like must fall down minimum 3 times per appearance and absolutely forbidden from accidentally winning. Your payment structure rewards survival and audience laughter rather than victories. But Cornelius is no fool. He knows your act only works if it seems genuine. The moment you appear to fail on purpose, you become just another performer. Your incompetence must remain achingly, authentically real. He assigns you a special trainer, not to improve your fighting, but to ensure you don't accidentally get better. This trainer, a retired comedian named Gaius, who performed between gladiator matches in his youth, teaches you the art of sustained incompetence. The secret, he says, is to always try your absolute hardest, Real failure is funnier than fake failure. You must genuinely attempt to fight well and genuinely fail every single time. And historians still debate whether contracts like yours were common or if you represent a unique innovation in gladiatorial entertainment. Fragment of papyrus from Egypt mention fighters of deliberate inadequacy. But most scholars argue these refer to fixed matches rather than your peculiar brand of authentic ineptitude. The other gladiators' reactions are mixed. Some resent that you'll earn money without risking death. Others are relieved. Fighting you in exhibitions means an easy payday with zero danger. Big Quintus volunteers to be your regular opponent, perfecting an act where he pretends you're a terrifying opponent while you accidentally defeat yourself. Cornelius also renegotiates with arena editors across Rome. Instead of billing you as a fighter, you're marketed as Fortunatus the Unlikeliest, a special attraction guaranteed to amuse. Your appearance fees are lower than champion gladiators, but higher than acrobats or beast fighters. You occupy a strange middle ground in arena economics. The Lanista's shrewdest move is refusing to let you fight to the death. Dead, you're worthless, he explains. Alive and failing, you're a renewable resource, like a mine that produces laughter instead of gold. He builds your appearances into contracts. Any games featuring his gladiators must also book you for comic relief. Your fellow trainees start treating you differently. You're no longer a failed gladiator, but a successful something else. The cook saves you extra portions, knowing you'll survive to eat tomorrow. The armorer stops trying to fit you properly, realizing ill-fitting equipment enhances your stumbling performances. Life in the barracks teaches you that gladiatorial politics are more complex than Senate intrigue. Every fighter navigates a web of alliances, rivalries, and unspoken rules. Your unique position as the Ludus's profitable disaster makes this navigation even trickier. You can't trade on fighting prowess or potential victories, so you develop different currency, harmlessness, and humor. Your bunk sits between Big Quintus and a Nubian swordsman named Hadrian, who speaks 4 languages and uses all of them to describe your combat inadequacy. The sleeping quarters are surprisingly comfortable. Cornelius knows exhausted gladiators train poorly. Each fighter has a small alcove with a straw mattress, a chest for possessions, and walls decorated with whatever reminds them of life before the arena. The morning routine establishes pecking order. Champions rise first, claiming the best spots at the wash basins and the freshest bread at breakfast. You've learned to wait until everyone else finishes, not from humility, but because you once caused a 6 gladiator pileup trying to navigate the morning rush while half asleep. The cook now just hands you bread directly to prevent incidents. Forming friendships requires careful strategy. The serious fighters initially avoided you, viewing association with incompetence as contagious bad luck. But your value as a training partner changes everything. Practicing against you lets skilled gladiators work on technique without risk. You're essentially a living, apologizing training dummy who occasionally provides unexpected challenges through sheer unpredictability. The Thracian twins, Castor and Pollux, adopt you first. They're rising stars, undefeated in 12 bouts, but suffer from pre-fight nerves. They discover that spending time with you before matches relaxes them. Hard to worry about dying, Castor explains, when we've just watched you knock yourself out with your own helmet, trying to put it on. You learn which gladiators to avoid. Brutus the Butcher, named for his tendency to continue attacking after opponents yield, considers your existence an insult to the profession. He accidentally shoulders you into walls, kicks sand in your food, and once tried to arrange a training accident involving you and a very sharp practice sword. Only Big Quintus's intervention, lifting Brutus by his throat and suggesting he find other hobbies, ends the harassment. The medical team becomes your closest allies. Democritus, the physician, sees you more than any 3 gladiators combined, treating your constant collection of minor injuries. He starts teaching you basic anatomy, not to improve your fighting, but so you can describe exactly which body part you've managed to damage each day. The masseur, a freedman named Felix, considers you job security. Arena politics extend beyond individual relationships. The ludus has factions: Greeks versus Romans, veterans versus newcomers, those who fight for glory versus those who fight to survive. You belong to none and all, a neutral party whose incompetence transcends cultural boundaries. The Greeks appreciate that you mangle Latin and Greek equally when panicking. The Romans find your failures democratically distributed across all fighting styles. Your role as entertainment creates unexpected influence. When tensions rise between factions, say, when a Greek accidentally kills a popular Roman in training, you're deployed as a peace offering. Your spectacular failure during the memorial demonstration somehow honors the dead while making everyone laugh. It becomes tradition. Serious occasions require your presence to prevent them from becoming too serious. The women who visit present unique challenges. Some gladiators have wives or lovers who bring food, news, and comfort. These women initially pity you, trying to mother you through your incompetence. This changes when they realize you'll likely outlive their champions. A strange respect develops. One veteran's wife starts bringing you her son's outgrown clothes, saying, "At least someone will use them." You discover the black market economy within the ludus. Gladiators trade everything: food, equipment, favorable training schedules, information about upcoming opponents. Your currency becomes inside knowledge about which wealthy Romans plan parties needing entertainment. You trade performance opportunities at lucrative private events for protection, better food, and most importantly, allies who ensure your training accidents remain genuinely accidental. The religious dynamics prove complex. Each fighter maintains shrines to their favored gods. You try honoring Mars, god of war, but your offerings keep falling off his altar. You switch to Fortuna, goddess of luck, which seems more appropriate. Other gladiators start rubbing your head before matches for luck. You've survived so much through sheer fortune that you're considered blessed. Navigating meals requires diplomacy. Seating arrangements reflect status and alliances. You float between tables, welcome everywhere because you're no threat to anyone's position. You become a messenger, carrying information between groups who won't directly communicate. Your terrible memory means you often garble messages, but somehow this makes you more trusted. Nobody suspects you of manipulation when you can barely remember your own name under pressure. The secret to your survival crystallizes during your first major appearance at the Flavian Amphitheater, the Colosseum itself. 50,000 Romans pack the stone seats, their roar washing over you like a physical force. You're scheduled between the midday executions and the premium gladiator matches, that sweet spot where the crowd needs emotional relief from watching criminals fed to bears. You stumble into the arena wearing armor that somehow looks wrong despite the armorer's best efforts. Your helmet sits askew, your left greave faces backward, and your sword belt has migrated to somewhere near your armpit. The crowd's bloodthirsty anticipation transforms into confused murmuring. Then someone laughs, a single, clear guffaw that spreads like Greek fire through the stands. Your opponent today is Marcus the Steady, a veteran chosen for his patience and showmanship. He knows the script: look dangerous, attack convincingly, let you defeat yourself. What neither of you expects is how spectacularly you'll fulfill that last part. As Marcus advances with measured steps, you attempt a defensive stance and somehow tangle your feet in your own sword belt, which has now descended to knee level. The crowd psychology shifts palpably. Romans come to the arena for emotional release, usually through bloodlust and vicarious victory. You offer something different: the catharsis of laughter, the relief of watching someone fail worse than they ever could. As you hop on one foot, trying to untangle yourself while holding a shield that's inexplicably upside down, 50,000 stressed Romans forget their troubles. You've stumbled onto something profound about crowd manipulation. Every gladiator learns to read the mob's mood: when they want blood, when they want mercy, when they're getting bored. You develop a different skill: sensing when they need to laugh. After two gladiators fight to mutual exhaustion, leaving both bleeding in the sand, you appear and immediately trip over the bloodstains. The horror transforms into hilarity. Your signature moves emerge organically. The panic spin when attacked. You close your eyes and rotate wildly, sword extended, clearing a 10-foot radius as everyone, including your opponent, dives for cover. The apologetic retreat, backing away while bowing and saying sorry repeatedly, usually culminating in you backing into a wall or falling over. The equipment rebellion, where your armor seems to actively fight against you, straps coming undone at crucial moments. But here's the brilliance: it never looks intentional. The crowd believes fully in your incompetence because it's genuine. Professional comedians who perform between fights rely on scripts and rehearsed gags. Your terror is real, your failures authentic, your survival genuinely miraculous. The audience responds to this authenticity with an affection they rarely show actual gladiators. You learn to read different sections of the crowd. The patricians in their shaded boxes appreciate witty incompetence. You save your more elaborate failures for when you're facing their direction. The plebeians standing in the upper tiers prefer slapstick for them. You emphasize the physical comedy of falling, dropping things, and accidental self-injury. The women often feel maternal sympathy, so you play up the apologetic, bewildered aspects of your persona. The Emperor's box presents special challenges. Emperors have varying senses of humor. You perform under three different rulers, each requiring adjusted tactics. The first enjoys intellectual humor. You incorporate accidental philosophy into your panicked rambling. The second prefers crude comedy. You oblige with spectacular pratfalls. The third has no sense of humor, but pretends to laugh because everyone else does, which somehow makes your act funnier to the crowd. Your mere presence changes arena dynamics. Editors, the magistrates who organize games, start requesting you specifically, not just as an intermission entertainment, but as emotional architecture for their events. You appear after particularly brutal deaths to restore levity, before important matches to relax the crowd, or when things go wrong and they need distraction. You become the arena's emotional safety valve. Other gladiators initially resent your crowd manipulation, seeing it as cheating. This changes when they realize the benefits. A crowd that laughs is more likely to show mercy. Gladiators who fight after your appearances face more generous audiences. Some champions specifically request you perform before their matches, knowing a happy crowd awards more prize money and gifts. The psychology goes deeper. Romans face constant stress, political upheaval, economic uncertainty, social pressure. The arena usually offers escape through vicarious violence. You provide escape through vicarious failure. Every Roman who's ever dropped something important, tripped in public, or embarrassed themselves sees themselves in you, but worse, and therefore better. You inadvertently pioneer new crowd interaction techniques. When you accidentally fling your sword into the stands, again, you don't just apologize, you engage in elaborate mime requesting its return. When you fall, you sometimes stay down and make sand angels. The crowd starts anticipating these moments, shouting suggestions for how you should fail next. Mastering the art of fake injuries requires more creativity than actual combat. Your first attempts are pathetically transparent, limping on the wrong foot, forgetting which arm is supposedly wounded. But necessity breeds innovation, and you develop a sophisticated repertoire of convincing ailments that keep you from serious fights while maintaining your entertainment value. The morning of your first potentially fatal match, you wake with genuine terror churning your stomach. Cornelius has been pressured to put you in a real bout. Some senator's son wants to see if the fool can actually die properly. Your scheduled opponent is a Gaul who collects teeth from fallen enemies. Your teeth chatter at the thought, giving you inspiration. During warm-ups, you accidentally dislocate your shoulder. The beauty is, you actually do dislocate it, just not accidentally. Years of incompetent sword work have taught you exactly how to pop joints in and out. Democritus. The physician rushes over as you writhe theatrically in the sand, cradling your arm. He pops it back in place, declares you unfit for combat, and you're saved. The Gaul fights someone else and adds their molars to his collection. You develop a catalog of strategically timed injuries. The sympathetic limp appears whenever particularly dangerous opponents arrive at the ludus. The mysterious stomach ailment strikes before matches with poisoned weapons. The temporary blindness achieved by accidentally getting sand in your eyes during practice saves you from fighting two men simultaneously. The key is variation and believability. You can't use the same injury twice in succession. Even Romans aren't that gullible. You maintain a mental schedule: shoulder dislocation on Monday, twisted ankle by Wednesday, pulled back muscle on Friday. Weekends are reserved for creative innovations, like accidentally punching yourself in the face hard enough to cause impressive swelling. Your fellow gladiators catch on quickly, but maintain the charade. It's in everyone's interest. They don't want to fight someone who might accidentally stab them while trying to surrender, and you don't want to die. An unspoken agreement emerges. They'll corroborate your injuries if you make their victory demonstrations look good. The infirmary becomes your second home. Democritus, initially frustrated by your constant presence, grows to appreciate the challenge. Another mysterious ailment. Fortunatus? He asks one morning as you arrive clutching your ribs. Let me guess, you injured yourself putting on your sandals? You nod enthusiastically, though actually you'd practiced falling off a bench for an hour to perfect the bruising. Some injuries are genuinely accidental, which helps maintain credibility. Your tendency to walk into walls, trip over flat surfaces, and somehow injure yourself with eating utensils provides a baseline of authentic clumsiness. When you claim a training injury, everyone believes it because they've seen you concuss yourself with your own shield during breakfast. The art extends beyond physical ailments. You pioneer psychological injuries. Stage fright becomes a legitimate medical condition when you faint at the sight of the arena. Weapon phobia manifests as uncontrollable shaking when handed anything sharp. Democritus, playing along, writes elaborate medical notes about your unique conditions, creating official documentation for your cowardice. Your fake injuries become performance art. When struck by sudden back spasms, you don't just clutch your back, you perform an elaborate dance of dysfunction, each movement triggering new waves of theatrical agony. The other gladiators place bets on how long you can maintain the performance. The record is 47 minutes of continuous agony that ends only when dinner is served. But the strategy requires careful politics. You must appear eager to fight despite your injuries, maintaining the fiction that only physical inability prevents your participation. You develop a repertoire of disappointed expressions, frustrated gestures at your traitorous body, and speeches about how desperately you want to prove yourself if only your flesh would cooperate. The injuries must also match your reputation. A champion gladiator claiming a stubbed toe would be laughed out of the arena. You, however, can claim near death from a splinter because everyone's seen you nearly die from less. Your spectacular incompetence makes even minor injuries plausible. Career enders. Timing proves crucial. Injuries must strike at believable moments, during training, not while sleeping. You wake early to practice your accident for the day. Should you trip downstairs, accidentally hit yourself with a practice weapon? The planning requires more strategy than actual combat. The Roman crowd, surprisingly, loves your injuries almost as much as your failures. They start cheering when you appear with new bandages, taking bets on what absurd ailment struck this time. Your elaborate injury mimes become requested performances. One afternoon, you spend 10 minutes acting out how you injured your knee, trying to avoid stepping on a beetle, and receive more applause than the actual gladiators. Your first major sponsor arrives in the form of Claudia Marcella, a widow whose late husband made a fortune importing garum, the fermented fish sauce Romans inexplicably love. She watches you during a private demonstration where you're supposed to showcase improved technique. Instead, you demonstrate how to accidentally tie yourself up with a net while attempting to use a trident. She laughs until wine comes out her nose, an unfortunate breach of patrician dignity that somehow endears you to her further. "I want to sponsor that one," she announces, pointing at you as you struggle to extricate yourself from the net you've somehow wrapped around your own ankles. Cornelius nearly chokes on his own wine. Gladiator sponsors typically want to bask in reflected glory, not reflected embarrassment. But Claudia has her reasons. Wealthy Romans sponsor gladiators for various purposes: social status, political influence, sexual conquests, or genuine blood sport enthusiasm. Claudia pioneers a new category, sponsoring you for pure entertainment value and social currency. At parties, while other matrons brag about their gladiators' kill counts, she regales audiences with your latest mishaps. You become her conversational weapon. The sponsorship negotiations baffle everyone. Normal sponsors demand training reports, dietary regimens, and victory projections. Claudia requests detailed accounts of your failures, insists you maintain your current level of incompetence, and includes contract clauses preventing you from accidentally improving. She pays Cornelius handsomely to ensure you receive the worst combat training possible. Your value to sponsors operates differently than traditional gladiator economics. Champions attract sponsors who want to associate with strength and victory. You attract sponsors who understand that in Rome's cutthroat social scene, making people laugh is worth more than making them bleed. Soon, other wealthy Romans follow Claudia's lead. There's Marcus Quintilian, a senator who sponsors you specifically to irritate his rival, who takes gladiator combat very seriously. During Senate meetings, Quintilian loudly discusses your latest failures, driving his opponent to apoplectic rage. "My gladiator Fortunatus," he'll say, "yesterday defeated himself with his own sandal. Extraordinary technique." Then comes Julia Felix, who runs Rome's most exclusive bathhouse. She sponsors you on the condition that you make appearances at her establishment, where you perform aquatic incompetence in the pools. Your inability to swim becomes legendary when you nearly drown in 3 feet of water while wearing a full gladiator kit for demonstration purposes. The sponsorship gifts are peculiar, where champions receive golden swords and elaborate armor. You're gifted things like extra padded helmets, sandals with grip enhancement to prevent your signature stumbles, and shields with handles designed for maximum retention. The irony that you still drop, trip, and injure yourself with these safety-enhanced items delights your sponsors enormously. Managing sponsor relationships requires delicate balance. Each wants exclusive stories of new failures, behind-the-scenes access to your training disasters, and invitations to watch you embarrass yourself in novel ways. You develop a rotation system, ensuring each sponsor gets fresh material. Monday's accidental self concussion becomes Tuesday's dinner party anecdote. The financial arrangements confuse traditional gladiator accounting. Champions earn purses for victories, execution fees for killing opponents, and sponsorship bonuses for particularly impressive performances. Your contracts specify payments for successful failures, audience laugh metrics, and novel incompetence demonstrations. Cornelius hires a specialized accountant just to track your bizarre income streams. Some sponsors develop genuine affection for you. Claudia starts treating you like an adopted son, a hilariously incompetent son she can showcase at social gatherings. She ensures you receive quality food, comfortable quarters, and medical care for your constant injuries. When you accidentally break one of her expensive statues during a villa performance, she commissions more statues specifically for you to break. The darker side of sponsorship emerges when certain sponsors want to see if your incompetence extends to actual death matches. A cruel merchant named Lucius offers substantial money to see you fight to the death against a blind opponent. To make it fair, Claudia and your other protective sponsors quickly squash this plan, threatening to ruin Lucius's business if he persists. Your sponsors inadvertently create a new social phenomenon. Fortunatus parties become fashionable, gatherings where you perform your incompetence for increasingly elaborate scenarios. Can you fail at serving wine? Yes, spectacularly. Can you bungle a basic dance? You accidentally invent new forms of rhythmic catastrophe. Can you mess up simply standing still? You fall over from concentration. The sponsorship network provides unexpected protection. When a rival ludus tries to kidnap you, apparently, profitable incompetence is worth stealing. Your sponsors mobilize their considerable resources. Within hours, the kidnapping gladiators find themselves facing lawsuits, their own sponsors withdrawing support, and their ludus under investigation for various suddenly discovered violations. Historians still debate the economic impact of sponsorship systems like yours. Traditional gladiator sponsorship reinforced martial values and celebrated violence. Your sponsors celebrate survival through entertainment, subtly undermining the arena's death cult mentality. Some scholars argue you represent the beginning of Rome's shift from blood sports to pure entertainment. The referee problem begins during the Festival of Mars, when you're scheduled for a demonstration bout against a Samnite warrior named Lucius who's in on the act. The plan is simple. He attacks, you panic, comedy ensues, crowd laughs, everyone goes home happy. What nobody accounts for is the new referee, Gaius Aurelius Strictus, a former centurion who treats arena regulations like holy scripture. Strictus arrives with a reputation for incorruptible enforcement of gladiatorial rules. He's ended matches for incorrect sandal lacing, disqualified champions for improper salutes, and once stopped a fight to measure whether a gladiator's sword exceeded regulation length by half a digit. Your theatrical incompetence is about to meet immovable officiating. The match begins normally. Lucius advances with exaggerated menace while you stumble backward, already tangling your feet in your own greaves. The crowd settles in for familiar entertainment. Then Strictus blows his whistle, a sharp bronze instrument that sounds like a dying goose, and everything goes wrong. Improper retreat technique, he bellows. Gladiator Fortunatus, you will maintain proper defensive posture. You stare at him in genuine confusion, which only makes the crowd laugh harder. He doesn't understand. Your improper everything is the entire point. But Strictus operates in a world where rules matter more than entertainment. You attempt to comply, adopting what you think might be a defensive stance. Strictus immediately whistles again. Sword angle incorrect, shield height violation, feet positioned outside regulation parameters. Each correction makes your position more awkward until you're contorted like a pretzel with a weapon. Lucius watches helplessly. Unsure how to attack someone, the referee keeps repositioning like a particularly incompetent statue. The crowd grows restless. They came for slapstick, not procedural enforcement. But Strictus remains oblivious, consulting his scroll of regulations while you try to hold an increasingly impossible position. Your left leg cramps, your shield arm trembles. Sweet Jupiter, you might actually have to fight properly. What follows is the most bizarrely officiated match in arena history. Every time you try to fail entertainingly, Strictus intervenes. Your signature panic spin is interrupted for rotational violations. Your apologetic retreat is stopped for unauthorized verbal emissions. Even falling down, your most reliable move, gets whistled for premature ground contact without proper defensive justification. The situation reaches peak absurdity when Strictus penalizes Lucius for insufficient aggression toward an incompetent opponent. He then turns to you and issues a warning for excessive incompetence exceeding acceptable parameters. The crowd doesn't know whether to laugh or riot. Cornelius watches from the sponsor's box, his face cycling through expressions of disbelief, horror, and calculation as he watches profits evaporate. You develop emergency strategies. If you can't fail naturally, you'll have to fail within the rules. You study Strictus's precious regulations, finding loopholes that allow entertaining incompetence. Technically, there's no rule against holding your sword backward if you maintain proper grip strength. Nothing prohibits apologizing in dactylic hexameter. No regulation prevents you from being terrified, as long as your fear follows proper defensive formations. The rematch draws a massive crowd, word having spread about the referee gladiator battle of wills. Strictus arrives with an even larger scroll of rules. You arrive having memorized every regulation, ready to fail legally. What follows is a masterclass in malicious compliance. You maintain perfect defensive stance while somehow making it look accidentally obscene. Your footwork follows regulation patterns, but spells out rude words in the sand. When Strictus demands proper sword technique, you comply so enthusiastically that you spin yourself dizzy and vomit, which, you quickly point out, violates no written rules. Other referees watch and learn. Some, sympathetic to entertainment, develop selective blindness during your bouts. Others, inspired by Strictus, attempt even stricter enforcement. You become a test case for referee authority, your matches turning into philosophical debates about the purpose of gladiatorial combat. Is it about martial excellence or crowd pleasure? Can failure be an art form? Should entertainment trump regulation? The referee wars escalate when Strictus assigns himself to all your matches, convinced he can force competence through enforcement. You respond by developing increasingly creative ways to fail within guidelines. The regulatory panic, where you recite rules while retreating, becomes a crowd favorite. The compliant collapse allows you to fall while maintaining textbook form. Some referees immerse the chaos, becoming part of your act. They officiate with theatrical seriousness, penalizing you for violations like insufficient cowardice or failure to fail properly. The crowd loves the meta-humor of referees refereeing your inability to fight. One referee gains fame by issuing you warnings in interpretive dance. The situation culminates when Strictus, driven to madness by your rule-abiding incompetence, challenges you to combat himself. The crowd roars approval, the ultimate rule enforcer versus the ultimate rule bender. What happens next passes into arena legend and drunk historian debate, but involves Strictus somehow knocking himself out with his own whistle while you apologize profusely for existing. Your survival equipment philosophy reverses conventional gladiatorial wisdom, where champions seek lightweight armor for speed and agility. You request the heaviest, most restrictive gear possible. The armorer, initially confused by your requests, eventually embraces the challenge of creating armor that actively impedes combat effectiveness while maximizing protection. Your helmet deserves special mention, custom forged with extra thick bronze. It limits vision to roughly 3 degrees and muffles hearing to near deafness. The weight guarantees neck strain within minutes, yet it's virtually impenetrable. You've survived direct hits that would decapitate normal gladiators, mostly because you never see them coming and accidentally duck at the wrong moment, causing weapons to strike the thickest part. The breastplate represents metallurgical comedy, designed to protect every vital organ while making basic movement nearly impossible. It features articulated plates that pinch, straps that tangle, and a weight distribution that ensures you'll tip over if you lean more than 10 degrees in any direction. You've discovered that falling backward in this armor creates a turtle-like situation where you rock helplessly until someone rights you. Your shield breaks traditional design principles. Most gladiators want balanced protection. They can maneuver quickly. Yours weighs as much as a small child and features a grip system so complex you need help attaching it. Once strapped on, removing it requires 3 assistants or a particularly violent fall. The shield's size means you can hide behind it completely, which you do, frequently. The sword situation becomes legendary among arena blacksmiths. You go through weapons faster than any 10 gladiators combined, not through combat damage, but through creative mishaps. You've bent swords by sitting on them, snapped them indoors, and once melted one by accidentally leaving it in the hypocaust heating system. The armorer now makes your swords from inferior metal, knowing they're doomed anyway. Your footwear evolves into engineering marvels. After numerous falls, twisted ankles, and spectacular stumbles, you commission boots with soles so thick you gain 3 inches of height. The trade-off is a gait like a drunk stork. The boots feature unnecessary straps, buckles, and metal reinforcements that catch on everything. You've tripped over flat sand more than anyone in gladiatorial history. The net and trident combination of a retiarius proves especially problematic. Your nets develop lives of their own, usually ensnaring you within seconds. The armorer creates a special weighted net that's theoretically easier to throw, but actually impossible to lift properly. Your trident is deliberately balanced wrong, ensuring any thrust will veer off target. You once threw it backward by accident, nearly spearing a senator. Maintenance of your equipment becomes a full-time job for the Ludus slaves. Where other gladiators need basic cleaning and sharpening, your gear requires constant untangling, reshaping, and removal of mysterious dents that appear but overnight. One slave's entire job involves following you around with oil, working on the hinges and joints you've somehow jammed just by walking. The equipment modifications extend to training gear. Your wooden practice sword is heavier than most metal weapons, guaranteed to exhaust you within minutes. Practice shields are specifically weighted to pull you off balance. Even your training posts are adjusted, made shorter so you constantly overswing, and taller so you must reach awkwardly. You pioneer protective equipment other gladiators never considered necessary, a reinforced codpiece after an unfortunate incident with your own sword, elbow padding after discovering how many surfaces you can strike while falling, a specially designed neck brace that prevents whiplash from your signature panic spins. You're the most padded gladiator in history. The customization requests baffle traditional armorers, but delight innovative ones. One creates a helmet with a rear-view bronze mirror, theoretically allowing you to see attacks from behind. In practice, it disorients you so badly you attack your own reflection. Another designs articulated gauntlets that should improve your grip, but instead turn your hands into clumsy metal paws. Your pre-fight equipment ritual becomes entertainment itself, where champions have slaves efficiently arm them in minutes. Your process takes nearly an hour. Each piece must be attached in specific order to avoid the Fortunatus tangle, a legendary state where straps interconnect so complexly that you must be cut free. The crowd often arrives early just to watch your armoring struggles. Other gladiators begin requesting Fortunatus modifications to their own gear, not for incompetence, but for survival. Your innovations in overprotection influence arena equipment evolution. Padding becomes more acceptable. Heavier armor for exhibition matches gains popularity. You accidentally revolutionize gladiatorial safety by trying to avoid gladiatorial combat. The economic impact ripples through Roman metalworking. Armorers compete to create increasingly elaborate, protective yet hindering designs for you. A cottage industry emerges of craftsmen specializing in defensive incompetence equipment. Your gear becomes so expensive that Cornelius insures it separately, though claims are frequent given your talent for destroying indestructible items. Partner selection becomes your highest art form, more crucial than any combat technique you'll never master. The difference between a patient collaborator and a glory-seeking hothead determines whether you leave the arena laughing or on a stretcher. You develop an uncanny ability to identify gladiators who understand that your mutual survival depends on choreographed chaos rather than actual combat. Your first great partner is Marcus the Steady, the veteran who faced you in your Colosseum debut. He possesses the patience of a philosophy teacher and the timing of a comedian. Together, you develop a routine where he appears increasingly frustrated by his inability to land a blow on someone who defeats themselves. His exaggerated eye rolls and theatrical sighs become as famous as your fumbling. The selection process involves careful observation in the practice yard. You watch for tells, gladiators who help fallen opponents up, who laugh at mistakes rather than exploit them, who fight with precision rather than brutality. These fighters understand that arena combat is as much performance as violence. They're artists willing to paint with incompetence rather than blood. You avoid the killers, the ones with dead eyes who see the arena as an abattoir rather than a theater. Brutus the Butcher remains your nightmare. He once grabbed you as a last-minute replacement partner and spent the entire bout actually trying to kill you while you performed increasingly desperate evasions. The crowd loved it, but you spent a week in the infirmary recovering from defensive trauma. Big Quintus becomes your most frequent partner, turning your size difference into comedy gold. He pretends you're a terrifying opponent while you cower behind your oversized shield. He's developed a move where he frantically dodges your wild swings that come nowhere near him. The crowd especially loves when he feigns exhaustion from chasing you in circles. The Greeks prove excellent partners, particularly those with theatrical backgrounds. Alexios the poet transforms your bouts into narrative epics. He provides running commentary in Homeric verse while you stumble around. Sing, muse, of Fortunatus the fumbling, whose sword finds only air and whose feet find only failure. The educated crowd members nearly injure themselves laughing. You develop a network of preferred partners across different fighting styles. For net and trident exhibitions, you work with Neptune, stage name, who's mastered the art of elaborately missing you with his net while you tangle yourself in your own equipment. For chariot events, yes, they make you do those too. You partner with a driver who specializes in spectacular but harmless crashes. The negotiation process happens in the bathhouse, away from trainers and lanistas. Gladiators approach you with propositions. I need easy money. Or, my wife's pregnant. I can't risk real fights. Or simply, I think it would be hilarious. You evaluate their ability to sell your incompetence without making it obvious. The best partners are those who can appear genuinely frustrated by their inability to defeat you. Female gladiators present unique opportunities. The rare gladiatrices who perform find that fighting you allows them to showcase skills without the usual Roman discomfort about women in combat. You're so thoroughly non-threatening that the crowd accepts female warriors defeating you as comedy rather than social upheaval. One gladiatrix, Diana, develops a routine where she defeats you using only defensive moves, never attacking once. Your partnership contracts become complex documents, where normal gladiator pairings involve simple agreements about profit sharing. Yours include choreography notes, safety protocols, and contingency plans for when your incompetence exceeds expected parameters. One contract includes the clause, If Fortunatus accidentally achieves victory, bout to be replayed with corrected outcome. Some partnerships transcend the arena. Castor, one of the Thracian twins, starts a side business performing at private parties as your partner. You're hired for corporate events. Yes, Roman merchant guilds have those, where you demonstrate combat miscommunication and synchronized stumbling. These performances pay better than arena fights and involve significantly less risk of accidental death. The psychology of partnership fascinates arena scholars. Your partners must suppress every gladiatorial instinct, the drive to win, to dominate, to survive through superior violence. Instead, they must lose convincingly to someone who can barely hold a sword. It requires a unique mindset that many gladiators simply cannot achieve. You maintain a ledger of partner ratings, written in code to prevent sabotage. 5 stars for those who enhance your act while keeping you unharmed. 1 star for those who forget the script and try to actually fight. The ledger includes notes like excessive realism in death threats and laughs during performance, bad for atmosphere but good for survival. The partner network extends beyond individual fighters. Entire Ludus schools recognize the value of having gladiators who can work with you. It becomes a mark of versatility. If a fighter can convincingly lose to Fortunatus, they can handle any performance requirement. Some trainers specifically develop Fortunatus-compatible gladiators. The medical tent becomes your second home, more familiar than your actual bunk. You know every stain on the canvas walls, every squeak of the examination tables, every herb in Democritus's extensive collection. The Greek physician initially treated you with professional detachment, but your constant presence has evolved your relationship into something between doctor-patient and comedy duo. Ah, Fortunatus. Democritus greets you one morning as you limp in with your left arm cradled dramatically. Let me guess, training accident? You shake your head. Arena injury? Another shake. You hurt yourself getting out of bed? Your enthusiastic nod makes him sigh deeply. Show me where the bed attacked you. Your medical record reads like fiction. Separated shoulder from sneezing too hard while wearing armor. Concussion from headbutting yourself trying to put on a helmet. Severe bruising from losing a fight with your own shield. Democritus maintains detailed notes, partly for medical purposes, partly because other physicians don't believe him without documentation. The frequency of your visits leads to innovations in treatment. Democritus develops a specific shelf of Fortunatus remedies, pre-mixed poultices for your common injuries, specialized bandages for your unique ability to hurt yourself in impossible ways, and a permanent prescription for willow bark tea because you always have something that aches. Other gladiators initially resent your medical tent monopoly. Champions bleeding from real wounds wait, while Democritus treats your aggressive splinter or combat-related hiccups. This changes when they realize your presence makes the medical tent a more pleasant place. Your elaborate injury narratives entertain recovering fighters better than any traveling poet. You become accidentally expert in medical knowledge through sheer exposure. You can identify herbs by smell, predict which treatments Democritus will prescribe, and even assist with minor procedures on other gladiators. Hold still, you tell a Thracian with a dislocated finger. I've had this done to me 17 times. The pop is normal. The tent's other regular inhabitants form a strange fellowship. There's veteran Gaius with his perpetually infected old wound, Marcus the nervous with his pre-fight vomiting, and clumsy Antonius, who's almost as accident-prone as you, but without the profitable incompetence. Together, you form the Frequent Healers Club, an unofficial support group for gladiators who spend more time horizontal than vertical. Democritus starts using you for medical education. When new physicians visit, he presents you as a walking catalog of unlikely injuries. Notice the scarring pattern here, he lectures, pointing to your shin. Classic self-inflicted sword-dropping trauma. And here, the only recorded case of a gladiator bruising his own back with his own shield while standing still. Your injury performances become increasingly elaborate. What starts as simple limping evolves into full theatrical presentations. You arrive at the medical tent in improvised litters, dragged by concerned fellow gladiators who can barely contain their laughter. Once, you're carried in on a door claiming temporary paralysis from acute combat terror. The psychological services expand because of you, Democritus, recognizing that half your injuries are fear manifested, brings in a specialist in anxiety treatments. The specialist prescribes meditation, which you somehow injure yourself doing. How does one sprain their inner peace? Democritus asks, genuinely curious as he treats your meditation-related neck strain. Supply management becomes complex due to your consumption. The medical tent uses more bandages on you than on all other gladiators combined. Cornelius briefly considers charging you for supplies until Democritus points out that your injuries, while frequent, are remarkably minor. You consume resources, but never require expensive treatments like surgery or major wound care. Your presence transforms the tent's atmosphere from a place of suffering to one of healing mixed with entertainment. Gravely injured gladiators find themselves laughing despite pain as you describe how you managed to knock yourself unconscious with your own elbow. Laughter, Democritus notes, seems to speed recovery, an observation that leads to your unofficial appointment as therapeutic entertainment. The tent becomes a safe space where your cowardice isn't shameful, but practical. Here, avoiding injury is wisdom, not weakness. Other gladiators begin admitting their own fears more freely. Champions confess pre-fight terror while you nod sympathetically, comparing notes on the best vomiting locations and whether certain fears manifest as specific injuries. You inadvertently advance medical science through your unique injuries. Democritus publishes treatises on paradoxical combat trauma based on your ability to hurt yourself in ways that defy anatomy. Other physicians visit specifically to study your case, leading to developments in protective equipment and new understanding of stress-related injuries. The medical tent's social dynamics shift with your constant presence. It becomes the Ludus's informal common room where gladiators gather not just for treatment, but for your daily injury report. What's broken today, Fortunatus, becomes a standard greeting. Your ability to find humor in pain mostly your own, creates a brotherhood among the broken. The Emperor's attention arrives like a lightning bolt from Jupiter himself, sudden, terrifying, and potentially fatal. You're mid performance at the Colosseum, executing your signature move of accidentally clotheslining yourself with your own sword belt. When you notice the Imperial box has gone quiet, not bored quiet, watching quiet. Emperor Hadrian himself leans forward, studying you with the intensity typically reserved for military maps or architectural plans. The bout ends with your traditional defeat, tripping over victory and landing face first in surrender. But instead of dismissal, a purple cloaked messenger approaches. Caesar requests your presence, he announces. The arena holds its breath. Imperial attention to a gladiator means either elevation or execution, sometimes both in quick succession. You're escorted to the Imperial box, leaving a trail of anxious sweat and accidentally dropped equipment. Hadrian sits surrounded by advisors, his architect's eye examining you like a peculiar building that somehow stands despite violating all structural principles. You attempt a bow and naturally botch it, nearly headbutting the imperial chair. Fascinating, Hadrian murmurs. Tell me, Gladiator, is your incompetence genuine or the greatest performance in Roman history? The question hangs like a sword. Answer wrong, and that sword drops. You respond with perfect honesty. Divine Caesar, I desperately wish it were performance. I'd sleep better. Hadrian laughs, a sound that makes his courtiers relax marginally. He sees something in you that intrigues his Greek-loving, philosophy-pondering mind. You've discovered something, he muses. Victory through defeat, survival through surrender. It's almost philosophical. Your imperial performance becomes the social event of the season. Hadrian requests a private demonstration at his villa where Rome's elite gather to watch you fail at increasingly ridiculous scenarios. Can you mess up a simple greeting? Yes, you accidentally slap the host. Can you bungle serving wine? You create a tsunami of Falernian that ruins 3 togas. Can you fail at standing still? You somehow fall up a step that isn't there. But Hadrian's interest runs deeper than entertainment. He's a student of human nature, fascinated by your ability to transform weakness into strength. He interviews you extensively, his questions probing the psychology of your survival. Do you choose to fail, or does failure choose you? You answer honestly about your terror, your inability to grasp basic combat, your discovery that incompetence could be currency. The emperor's favor transforms your status overnight. Senators who previously ignored you now invite you to dinner parties. Your performances become must-see events for social climbers. But imperial attention is double-edged. Hadrian's interest makes you valuable, which makes you a target for those who trade in imperial favorites. You navigate this new danger with characteristic clumsiness that somehow works. When rivals attempt to undermine you with Hadrian, you accidentally prove their points while making them look petty. A jealous courtier claims you're faking. You promptly knock over a priceless statue while denying it. A senator suggests you're too stupid to entertain. You deliver an accidentally brilliant malapropism that becomes Rome's favorite quote. Hadrian incorporates you into his cultural agenda. He's Hellenizing Rome, Promoting Greek art, philosophy, and theater, you become his unlikely ambassador for Greek comedy traditions, though you've never studied them. Your natural incompetence embodies the Greek concept of the iron, the self deprecating character who triumphs through apparent weakness. The emperor's architects study your movements, fascinated by your ability to find the least efficient path between any 2 points. He defies geometry, one notes, watching you somehow walk 3 sides of a square to reach an adjacent corner. Hadrian commissions a garden maze designed on your movement patterns. It becomes impossibly difficult because no rational person would navigate space like you do. Your imperial performances grow elaborate. Hadrian stages mock battles where you face increasingly absurd opponents, mechanical gladiators that you still manage to lose against, children with wooden swords who defeat you soundly, once memorably, a particularly aggressive goose that chases you around the arena for 20 minutes. But the emperor's interest creates unexpected philosophical discussions. Hadrian, during his travels, shares stories of your incompetence with foreign dignitaries. Greek philosophers debate whether you represent the ultimate Stoic, accepting fate so completely that you transcend normal human categories. Egyptian priests wonder if you're divinely touched, protected by gods, amused by your failures. The danger crystallizes when Hadrian falls ill during one of his journeys. The court vultures circle, knowing imperial favorites rarely survive succession, but you're saved by your uselessness. Nobody sees you as threat or asset worth eliminating. Your furniture, amusing furniture that might entertain the next emperor or might not, but certainly not worth assassination expenses. When Hadrian returns, recovered but thoughtful about mortality, he grants you something unprecedented, a wooden sword of freedom that explicitly states you're never to fight again. Rome needs its philosophers, he declares. Some teach through words, some through deeds. You teach through failure. It's the strangest manumission in gladiatorial history. The wooden sword of freedom feels wrong in your grip, too light, too symbolic, too fraught with possibilities you never imagined reaching. Manumission negotiations typically involve straightforward terms: years of service, number of victories, crowd favor metrics. Yours reads like a philosopher's fever dream mixed with a lawyer's nightmare. The gladiator known as Fortunatus, Cornelius reads from the official document, his voice wavering between disbelief and calculation, is hereby granted freedom on condition that he never, under any circumstances, demonstrate martial competence. The clause continues for 3 paragraphs, legally enshrining your incompetence as a protected Roman institution. Your fellow gladiators react with a mixture of joy, envy, and confusion. Big Quintus lifts you in a bear hug that definitely cracks ribs, while Marcus the Steady shakes his head in amazement. 53 victories, and I'm still here, he muses. You, 0 victories and somehow famous. The gods have a sense of humor. The negotiation process reveals the unique economics of your situation. Normal gladiators buy freedom with blood and victories. You've generated more revenue through failure than most champions earn through dominance. Cornelius's ledgers show the truth. Your appearance fees, Sponsorship deals and private performances have made you one of his most profitable investments. But freedom for a gladiator is never simple. You need a trade, a place in Roman society. Cornelius, ever the businessman, proposes a partnership. You'll be a freedman attached to his ludus, available for special exhibitions, training demonstrations of what not to do, and maintaining morale. It's slavery with a salary, but it beats actual slavery. The sponsors complicate matters. Claudia Marcella insists on retaining exclusive rights to your dinner party performances. Senator Quintilian demands first option on your appearances at political events. Julia Felix wants you for bathhouse entertainment. Your freedom negotiations become a complex web of social obligations that would challenge a practiced diplomat, which you decidedly are not. You accidentally innovate the role of gladiator emeritus, a position that didn't exist until you needed it. Not quite fighter, not quite free, existing in a liminal space where your primary obligation is to remain entertainingly incompetent. The contract includes provisions for maintaining your performance quality, with financial penalties if you accidentally improve at anything martial. The ceremony itself turns into a characteristic disaster. You're supposed to kneel before Cornelius, receive the wooden sword, and make a dignified exit. Instead, you trip approaching him, knock over the ceremonial table, and somehow break the wooden sword, an act previously thought impossible. The crowd, gathered for the occasion, erupts in delighted laughter. Even formal manumission becomes comedy in your hands. Your new status creates unexpected opportunities. Wealthy Romans hire you as a confidence instructor for their clumsy children. See, parents say, watching you fail spectacularly. Even Fortunatus survived the arena. You can survive dinner without spilling. You become Rome's most expensive self-esteem boost. The gladiator school dynamics shift with your changed status. You're no longer a peer, but not quite authority. Younger fighters seek your advice on survival, which you give honestly. Be so bad that killing you would be embarrassing. Veterans treat you as a mascot, rubbing your head before matches for luck. You're living proof that the arena doesn't always demand blood. Legal complications arise immediately. A rival ludus claims your manumission is fraudulent. How can someone be freed for failing at their profession? The court case becomes Rome's entertainment of the month. You testify, accidentally knocking over the water clock and causing a flood that delays proceedings for a day. The judge rules in your favor, partly from legal merit, mostly from exhaustion. Your earnings as a freedman confuse Roman tax collectors. What category covers professional incompetence exhibitions? Are your fumbles goods or services? The financial classification of failure becomes a bureaucratic nightmare that spawns its own department within the tax authority. You single-handedly complicate Roman economic law. Housing presents challenges. You can afford a decent apartment, but struggle with basic household management. You hire a slave specifically to prevent you from burning down your residence. The neighbors petition for your removal after you flood the building trying to use the hypocaust system, but your landlord keeps you because you pay rent in advance, knowing you'll forget it otherwise. The transition from slave to freedman illuminates Rome's complex social hierarchies. You're free but marked. The gladiator's stigma remains despite your unique path. Upper-class Romans who laughed at your performances now struggle with protocol. Are you entertainment or guest? The confusion works in your favor. Uncertain Romans default to politeness rather than risk offending Hadrian's favorite fool. Your manumission document becomes a template for other unusual gladiator freedoms. Fighters with entertainment value beyond combat reference your precedent. The Fortunatus Clause enters legal vocabulary, describing any contract that rewards failure within specific parameters. Roman law students study your case as an example of how law adapts to social evolution. Your legacy spreads through the empire like spilled wine across a toga, messy, unexpected, and impossible to fully clean up. 20 years after your last arena appearance, Fortunatus has become a byword for miraculous survival through spectacular incompetence. Children play Fortunatus and the Gladiator in Roman streets, arguing over who gets to be the one who wins by losing. The transformation of gladiatorial entertainment accelerates partly due to your influence. Where once audiences demanded only blood and death, they now expect variety, comedy, drama, spectacle beyond mere killing. Promoters include Fortunatus acts in their programs, gladiators who specialize in theatrical failure. None quite capture your authentic incompetence, but they try, creating a new performance category. You establish a training academy, not for combat, but for survival through entertainment. The ludus of fortunate failure attracts unusual students, clumsy aristocratic sons, aging gladiators seeking career transitions, and entrepreneurs who recognize that making Romans laugh pays better than making them scream. Your curriculum includes courses like advanced stumbling, weapon mismanagement, and profitable cowardice. The philosophical implications of your career spark debates in Roman intellectual circles. Stoics argue you embody perfect acceptance of fate. Epicureans claim you found pleasure's true path through avoiding pain. Cynics see you as proof that society rewards appearance over substance. You accidentally inspire more philosophical treatises than most emperors. Your influence reaches beyond entertainment into military training. Some generals, studying your survival rate versus traditional gladiators, incorporate Fortunatus drills where soldiers practice retreating, surrendering, and avoiding combat. While controversial, units trained in tactical cowardice show surprisingly high survival rates in unwinnable situations. You've somehow revolutionized Roman military doctrine through pure accident. The economic model you pioneered transforms arena economics. Sponsors realize that investing in entertainers yields better returns than backing warriors who might die in their first bout. The gladiator industry shifts towards sustainable performance rather than disposable violence. Lanistas recruit differently, seeking performers who can survive profitably rather than just fight magnificently. Your memoir, dictated to a patient scribe over many wine-soaked evenings, becomes Rome's unexpected bestseller. Failing upward, A Gladiator's Guide to Incompetence outsells military histories and philosophical texts. The reading creates a new literary genre, the survival comedy. Romans discover they prefer laughing at relatable failure over worshiping impossible heroism. The social impact extends to Roman concepts of masculinity. Where once Roman men measured worth through martial prowess, your success introduces alternative models. It becomes acceptable, even fashionable, to admit fear, to acknowledge weakness, to survive through wit rather than violence. Patrician fathers stop demanding their sons excel at swordplay, accepting that profitable incompetence beats a honorable death. Your training methods spread to other professions. Orators study your accidental rhetoric, how mumbling apologies somehow moves crowds more than polished speeches. Artists analyze your movement patterns, finding beauty in inefficiency. Architects design buildings inspired by your ability to remain standing despite violating all principles of balance. The religious implications fascinate priests. Temples report increased offerings to Fortuna after your success. Some argue you're divinely protected, a sacred fool whose survival proves the god's sense of humor. A small cult develops around your accidental wisdom, collecting your malapropisms as sacred texts. You accidentally found a religion based on fortunate failure. Former opponents achieve their own fame through association. I fought Fortunatus becomes a badge of honor, proving a gladiator's patience and showmanship. Marcus the Steady writes his own memoir, focusing on the art of losing to someone who defeats themselves. The Thracian twins tour the provinces performing classic Fortunatus battles, keeping your legend alive. Your influence on language persists. To pull a Fortunatus means to succeed through failure. Fortunate fool describes someone whose incompetence proves advantageous. Military commanders warn against Fortunatus syndrome when soldiers survive through luck rather than skill. You've enriched Latin with an entire vocabulary of profitable inadequacy. The medical community publishes studies on the Fortunatus effect, how positive expectations of failure reduce performance anxiety, sometimes improving outcomes. Physicians prescribe controlled incompetence for overachieving patients. Your accidental therapeutic method helps countless Romans accept their limitations and find alternative paths to success. Archaeological evidence of your impact surprises future historians. Graffiti in Pompeii includes Fortunatus lives and crude drawings of gladiators tripping. Pottery shards depict comic arena scenes rather than heroic victories. Children's toys include stumbling gladiator dolls that fall over when moved. Your cultural footprint proves deeper than many emperors. As you age, surrounded by the comfortable chaos of your gladiator school, watching students perfect the art of imperfection, a profound truth emerges. The arena taught Rome to worship strength, but you taught it to laugh at weakness. In a civilization built on conquest, you conquered through surrender. Where others brought death, you brought life, messy, stumbling, apologetic life that somehow survived everything. The sun sets over Rome as you attempt to pour wine, miss your cup, and splash an expensive vintage across your desk. Your students laugh, not at you, but with you. Understanding the deepest lesson, sometimes the greatest victory, is admitting defeat. Sometimes the strongest shield is laughter. Sometimes surviving is more heroic than dying. And in the end, isn't that the most Roman lesson of all? The empire endures not through perfection, but through adaptation. You adapted incompetence into an art form, cowardice into courage, failure into the strangest success story ever told. Future generations will struggle to believe you existed, this gladiator who couldn't fight, who shouldn't have survived, who somehow changed everything by changing nothing about himself. So here in the quiet evening of your unlikely life, as Roman streets fill with citizens heading home from another day of struggle and survival, you embody a different kind of triumph. Not the triumph of armies or emperors, but of every person who ever fell down and got back up, whoever failed and found a way forward, whoever discovered that sometimes the best way to win is to stop trying to win at all. The stars emerge over the eternal city, each one a point of light in the darkness, like the laughs you sparked in the brutal arena. You changed Rome not through blood or conquest, but through the simple, revolutionary act of being terrible at your job and finding a way to make that terribly human truth into something beautiful. Tomorrow, new students will arrive at your school, desperate to learn the secrets of survival. You'll teach them to fall safely, to fail spectacularly, to find strength in weakness. But tonight, you simply exist, a testament to the power of incompetence, the victory of survival, the triumph of being gloriously, profitably, immortally bad at what you do. And somewhere in the streets below, a child playing at gladiators deliberately trips and falls, arms windmilling dramatically, while their friends applaud. Your legacy lives on in every stumble, every mistake transformed into opportunity, every failure that becomes its own kind of success. The arena made you a gladiator, fear made you a failure, but laughter, that most human of responses, made you immortal. Not bad for someone who never won a fight, never mastered a weapon, never did anything right except survive. In the end, perhaps that's the only victory that truly matters. Sleep well, gentle gladiator. Dream of swords you'll drop, battles you'll lose, and the endless laughter of crowds who came for blood, but left with something better, the knowledge that even in the empire's darkest spectacles, humanity finds a way to make light.